serum sodium concentration less than 135 millimole per liter. There are three types of hyponatremia: hypovolemic, euvolemic, and hypovolemic. Patient may present with nausea, vomiting, headache, or symptoms due to acute cerebral edema like seizure activity, brainstem herniation, coma, and finally death. Causes of acute hyponatremia include post-operative and hypotonic fluid infusion, glycine irrigation like in TURP and uterine surgery, colonoscopy preparation, and recent institution of thiazides is a cause for acute hyponatremia. And then others are like polydipsia, MDMA injection, the ecstasy drug, and exercise induced, and might be multifactorial like thiazide plus polydipsia. Chronic hyponatremia is defined as more hyponatremia lasting more than 48 hours. It includes the features of acute hyponatremia plus subtle gait or cognitive defect may be there, and long-term hyponatremia will lead to reduction in bone density as well. Then first step is to assessment of volume status in a case of hyponatremic patients. If the patient is suffering from hypovolemia, then there are divided into two types. The urine sodium is calculated if it is more than 20 and less than 20. Then these are, if more than 20, the renal losses, diabetic excess, mineral corticoid deficiency, all are included in this. And if the urine sodium is less than 20%, then the extra renal causes like vomiting, diarrhea, and third space shifting of fluids like burns and pancreatitis are included. And in euvolemic hyponatremia, there are there is urine sodium is more than 20 millimoles, which include the causes like glucocorticoid deficiency, hypothyroidism, stress, and other drugs. And hypervolemic hypovolemia includes the hyperdynamic states like renal failure and nephrotic syndrome, cirrhosis, and congestive cardiac failure.
Urine sodium is how to assess urine sodium. Here it is done. So you are mostly focused according to urine sodium.
Yeah.
So how to, where it is done, how to do, are you doing regularly here?
It is the international protocol, but here we are not doing. Osmolality and urine sodium, these are the two factors.
Because it's mostly urine sodium that you have mentioned, important. Everything based on urine sodium.
And osmolality, urine osmolality.
Since the etiology is clear here, so then one subset includes syndrome of inappropriate antidiuresis, which include all these infections and malignant causes. Then treatment of hyponatremia includes if patient is presented with acute and symptomatic hyponatremia, the choice is obvious 3% sodium chloride, and the deficit is calculated as 0.6 into body weight into target sodium concentration minus patient's sodium concentration. And also other option is in hypovolemic hyponatremia, isotonic saline is the only option. And in chronic hyponatremia, the vasopressin antagonists are also used, like in syndrome of inappropriate antidiuresis, which includes tolvaptan, which is a V2 receptor antagonist, and it is an oral drug, and conivaptan, which is V1A and V2 receptor antagonist, which is for IV use. And treatment of underlying causes like SIADH and other malignancy will also be required. Then water deprivation and dietary solute intake and potassium replacement. Or if hyponatremia is presented with hypokalemia, then potassium replacement will also correct sodium accordingly. And the treatment of syndrome of inappropriate antidiuresis includes combination of salt tablets plus furosemide 20 mg BID. And the second line drug is demeclocycline. Demeclocycline is a inhibitor of principal cells in the kidney, which counteracts the effect of ADH. Then there are also vasopressin antagonists, Vaptans, which are used in SIADH. If one of the complications of rapid correction of hyponatremia is osmotic demyelination syndrome. Rapid correction is defined as more than 8 to 10 millimole correction in first 24 hours, or more than 18 millimole for 48 hours. The clinical features include the osmotic demyelination mainly involves the POMS, which is called central pontine demyelination, which may present with para or polyparesis, dysphagia, dysarthria, diplopia, and loss of consciousness. Other sites also includes, rarely include cerebellum, the lateral genicular body, and the thalamus, putamen, cortex, and subcortex. Rarely, in these sites also demyelination can occur. Risk factor for this syndrome is if the patient is alcoholic, malnourished, if there is concomitant hypokalemia and liver transplantation, these patients are more prone for osmotic demyelination syndrome. Now coming to hyperkalemia. Hyperkalemia is defined as serum potassium more than 5.5 millimole per liter. Mechanism is there are 3-4 mechanisms for hyperkalemia. There might be redistribution and reduced tissue uptake of potassium. Potassium is mainly intracellular ion, so if there is efflux from the cells, it will lead to hyperkalemia. And the second is there is reduced renal excretion of potassium, which is the most common cause of hyperkalemia. And excessive intake of potassium supplements is a rare cause of hyperkalemia. And then the chronic kidney disease and drugs that impact on renin, angiotensin, and aldosterone axis, like ACE inhibitors and all potassium sparing diuretics will lead to hyperkalemia. These are the causes of hyperkalemia. More pseudo hyperkalemia, cellular reflux. Sir have told that's lysis, cell lysis during, and other drugs and all that. Clinical features of hyperkalemia. Patients potassium hyperkalemia affects mainly the heart, so there are arrhythmias associated with hyperkalemia. Mostly there might be sinus bradycardia, sinus arrest, or slow idioventricular rhythm, and ventricular tachycardia, ventricular fibrillation, and can lead to cardiac arrest. The ECG changes in hyperkalemia. Initially, hyperkalemia affects the repolarization of cardiac muscle that will, if presented by tau and peak waves in the serum concentration of 5.5 to 6.5 millimole. Further increase in serum potassium will lead to prolongation of PR interval and widening of QRS complexes and then will lead to loss of P waves and sine wave, ultimately sine wave patterns. And in our patient, like, we have loss of P waves and idioventricular rhythms. So these are ECG changes. And management of hyperkalemia, which includes continuous cardiac monitoring and immediate antagonism of cardiac effects. Like we give calcium gluconate. Calcium gluconate is a physiological antagonist of potassium. Calcium gluconate reduces the threshold between action potential of cardiac muscles and resting membrane potential. So it reduces the excitability of cardiac muscle, and it is used for antagonism of cardiac effects of hyperkalemia. It is used in dose of 10 ml of 10% solution infused over 2 to 3 minutes. The effect starts immediately, and it lasts around 30 to 60 minutes. The second option is to reduce the hyperkalemia. The rapid reduction is by redistribution into cells. First, we give the insulin 10 units plus D25 or dextrose 50% solution or dextrose 25% infusion with close monitoring of glucose concentration. In patients with hyperglycemia and hyperkalemia, only insulin infusion can be used. In normoglycemic patients, this insulin will cause hypoglycemia, so it is followed by D25 or D50 dextrose 50 insulin, dextrose infusion. The second is beta 2 agonist. Albuterol is most commonly used and salbutamol also. This is called shift of potassium from extracellular to intracellular spaces. And IV bicarbonate is only indicated if there is metabolic acidosis with hyperkalemia. Then to remove the potassium from body, there are 2-3 options like cation exchange resins, diuretics, and last option is hemodialysis. The cation exchange resins include sodium polystyrene sulfonate (SPS), which is given 15 to 30 grams in thrice a day, thrice or 4 times a day. It is used with sorbitol. Side effects are intestinal necrosis. And contraindications to this SPS is post-operative patients with intestinal obstruction and ischemic bowel disease, and renal transplant patients. These are the contraindications for this sodium polystyrene sulfonate. Then diuretics can be used. Loop diuretics like furosemide and thiazide diuretics reduce potassium levels by excreting through the kidneys. And the last option is hemodialysis, which is the most efficient measure to control potassium.